I used to work part-time at a small hardware store in town. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it paid the bills. Most days were pretty ordinary, but there's this one night that still gives me chills when I think about it. It was a busy day, one of those where people were constantly coming in for supplies, and the delivery trucks just kept rolling in. I was giving my full attention to a customer who needed help finding the right tools. The sun was setting, and we were about to close up shop. That's when she walked in, a woman in her 40s, I'd say. She had an eerie vibe about her, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. She didn't seem interested in buying anything, just sort of wandered around, looking at the shelves like she was lost. As the minutes passed, things started to get weird. I noticed items falling off the shelves for no apparent reason. It wasn't just one or two, it was as if the entire store had suddenly come alive, with tools and supplies crashing to the floor. I exchanged a puzzled look with my coworker, Tom, who was busy at the cash register. He shrugged, just as baffled as I was. But there was something else, something that made my stomach turn. The woman seemed to be hiding in the corner, moving silently between the aisles. It was like she was playing a twisted game of hide and seek. Closing time was approaching, and Tom went to the front to lock the doors. That's when I noticed the woman was still inside. I went up to Tom and told him about her, and we decided to approach her together. "Ma'am, we're closing up now," I said, trying to sound as polite as possible. She turned to us, her eyes devoid of any emotion. "I'm not ready to leave," she muttered, her voice sending shivers down my spine. Tom, being more assertive, told her again that she needed to go. But she just stood there, refusing to budge. We didn't want any trouble, so Tom went to call security. As we waited for security to arrive, things took a chilling turn. The woman started whispering in a low, monotone voice, speaking words I couldn't understand. It was like she was chanting some strange incantation. Finally, the store's security showed up. He told the woman she had to leave, or he'd have to call the police. She didn't seem fazed by his threat, just kept whispering those bizarre words. That's when Frank grabbed her arm, trying to escort her out. But as soon as he touched her, something unbelievable happened. The woman's face contorted into an unnatural, twisted grin, and she let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the store. We all froze in terror, unable to comprehend what we were witnessing. And then, as quickly as it had started, the screaming stopped. The woman's face returned to its emotionless state, and she calmly walked out of the store, as if nothing had happened. Frank was left trembling, and I couldn't find the words to describe what we had just witnessed. Tom and I exchanged a look of disbelief. We locked up the store in silence, our minds racing with questions that had no answers. I was inside of the hardware store, just like any other Saturday morning. The smell of wood and metal, the sound of tools clinking against each other, it's like heaven for a car enthusiast like me. I was on a mission, looking for the right tools and equipment for my car restoration project. I was walking down the narrow aisles, checking out wrenches and screwdrivers, lost in my own world, when I noticed her, a mysterious woman. She looked weird, wearing a long, dark coat that seemed out of place for a sunny day. Her face was mostly hidden under a wide-brimmed hat, and her sunglasses shielded her eyes from view. At first, I thought maybe she was just another customer, like me, browsing for something she needed. But as I moved from one aisle to another, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was following me. Every time I glanced back, she was there, a few steps behind, like a shadow that refused to fade. I picked up a few items, trying to convince myself that I was being paranoid. But every time I turned around, her presence was unmistakable. She didn't seem interested in buying anything, she just kept her distance and watched me. My heart started to race, and I felt a growing sense of unease. I decided to test my theory. I randomly changed direction, pretending to be interested in a different section of the store. I thought that if she was truly following me, she would follow my lead. And she did. It was as if she had an invisible tether to me, always keeping a certain distance. I couldn't focus on the tools anymore, all I could think about was the woman tailing me. My palms were sweaty, and my nerves were on edge. I made my way to the cashier, hoping that interacting with the store staff would deter her. But when I reached the counter, she was still there, standing at a distance, her eyes locked on me. I paid for my items, trying not to show my unease to the cashier, who gave me a curious look as I left the store. Outside, I walked briskly towards my car, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed to get away from this unsettling situation. I glanced over my shoulder one last time, and that's when I saw it. The woman was walking away, disappearing into the crowd on the busy street. Relief washed over me, but questions still swirled in my mind. Why had she been following me? What did she want? Last year, I had a job at this local hardware store. It was your typical small-town shop, and most days, it was just about selling tools and helping folks find what they needed to fix their homes. One evening, as the sun was setting and the store was about to close, this lady walked in. She seemed like an ordinary customer at first, browsing the aisles and picking up various items. Nothing unusual about that. As the closing announcement played over the store's speakers, this lady approached me. She had a look in her eyes that I couldn't quite place. It was intense, almost like she was sizing me up. She asked for assistance in carrying her purchases to her car, which was parked out in the dimly lit parking lot. I agreed, thinking it was a simple request, just helping a customer like any other day. So, I followed her to her car, a rusty old sedan parked near the far end of the lot. The whole time, something felt off, but I brushed it aside as just being tired from a long day at work. I began loading her items into the trunk of her car, one by one. But as I was doing this, I noticed something strange out of the corner of my eye. There was another woman, standing in the shadows near the back of the parking lot. She was staring right at me with this eerie, piercing gaze. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I tried to ignore it, thinking maybe it was just a coincidence, but that feeling of unease grew stronger with each passing moment. The lady I was helping suddenly turned towards me and, with a grip like a vice, grabbed my hand. She looked me dead in the eyes and started shouting, but it wasn't in any language I could understand. It was like gibberish, a series of strange sounds and words. She was trembling and her eyes were wild, like she was trying to convey some urgent message. I panicked, yanked my hand away, and stumbled back towards the store. The lady kept shouting, her voice growing louder and more frantic. I burst through the store's entrance, gasping for breath, and turned to look back at the parking lot. To my absolute horror, the lady who had been watching me was gone. As if she'd never been there in the first place. I couldn't make sense of it. What had just happened? Was it some kind of prank?